What's up, bomb ass moms? Welcome back to the Bomb Ass Moms Podcast. I'm your girl, Erica.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Tierney, and we're the Bomb Ass Moms. What's up, y'all? We are back for another week of talking. So, this
Yay!
week, we're going to be talking about carrying the mental load. Like, do you really just get exhausted being a mom? What do y'all feel about that?
Wait, Tierney, before we talk about this good topic about, being mentally exhausted, let's make sure we let the Bum Ass Mom Squad out there know how to follow us, how to ask us questions. They can follow us on IG or Facebook or even email us at BombAssMomsPodcast@gmail.com. So, with that being said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. So, let's get into it.
Sometimes, being a stay at home mom, I am mentally exhausted at the end of the day. And guess what? At the end of the day, I do not get a break. I'm usually, well, not usually, I am mom 100% of the time. And so this goes back to being the primary parent. As a stay at home mom, it's like I have the responsibility of being the primary parent 100% of the time. And I would
So,
say, uh huh.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So, you're telling us that being the primary parent most of the time. Like, what do you do to like take time for yourself? I know that can be mentally exhausting. I haven't had to be like the primary parent to stay at home, but like, can you let us know like how you go about day to day life and take time for yourself and take care of your mental health too?
Oh my gosh. Well, I had to have a conversation with my boyfriend to let him know, hey, I'm on the verge of a breakdown. Like, I really need a break. Like, when you come home, baby, I understand that you're tired, but I need a break. And, the crazy thing is, he's like, you don't have to ask me for a break. Just take you a break. Just go away, go do something, go lay down. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Like, I was just trying to be very considerate of you. I know that you worked all day. So I know you need like a little break to get yourself together, get in daddy mode. But he was like, no, don't worry about me. Do you? And I'm like, oh, okay. He was like, you don't need my permission. And I think it's just how I was like programmed. Maybe I'm just such an empath, as they say, empath. You care about others, you care about others' feelings. Um, and I guess being in the profession of nursing, I would feel that way. So now what I do when he comes home, yeah, I leave the baby downstairs. He may cry, but now he's to the age, he's 17 months now. He'll be like, bye bye. And I'll be like, bye. And I'm so happy because, like, the separation anxiety has lessened. I can go upstairs, take me a nap, or I can go upstairs, catch up on my TV and just chill. What about y'all? Because y'all have different scenarios. Both of you all, you work. So you go outside of the home. How do you all deal with your mental load? Like, what are some things that stress you out? Because Ashley, you kind of have a different story. You're co-parenting. Erica, you live with your fiance. So how do you all carry the mental load? What stresses you the most, and how do you get through that day by day?
Girl, Erica, I'm gonna let you go because, baby, I got a therapist. We'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead, Erica. Go ahead, girl.
For me, I think what stresses me the most is because I work and it's like I'm on a job 24 hours a day. I work a job in the morning times. And of course, when I get off of work, I go into mommy's mode due to the fact that, my fiance, he works overnight. So it's always work, mommy, and then it's kind of like, I'm not going to say that see like now. I'm having him with me now because of the fact that his dad hasn't had any sleep and he's been up all day. So today my baby, he's sick. We've been ripping and running all day. We put up a Christmas tree, and then on top of that, his dad hasn't had any sleep, so he had to be with me on the podcast today, unfortunately. So if y'all hear him, then that's my baby. That's my little one. He up here looking at me like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I think for me, I'm still living in before I had him. So, I'm used to getting off of work, taking a bath, just having some time to myself. I don't have that anymore. So I think the thing that stresses me out is just not having that personal time to myself, And I was just reading on Facebook, like somebody put up a post. It was a mother. Of course, she was breastfeeding the baby. The baby was on the side of her sleep. And on the post, it was just mainly just saying, dads, here is, what moms have to deal with. You guys don't know what it feels like. You guys can go, you can come in, you can eat your dinner peacefully, you can take you a shower, a bath, you can go freely. But when it comes down to moms, we don't have that luxury. When we have to take a bath, it's like 3 5-minute showers, and then within that time, we're still popping in and out, just trying to make sure that your baby isn't crying or ain't getting into nothing. Even when you eating, you eating with you and the baby, baby eating off your plate. It's just this day-to-day life of just being a mom. But again, I think said for me, the most thing is just not having that personal time and just always work baby. And like even at nighttime, like I don't really get a chance to just have a full night's rest because again, my baby, he still doesn't sleep through the night. He has his nights where he wakes up maybe once. On a good night it's once, but on a bad night it may be two to three times out of a night. And because he's been sick, it's been like 3 times. So like last night was, a prime example of a rough night because he got up like 3 times. It was, he's congested. Then, he wanted to be up under me. And I don't know. This morning I was just like, Lord help me.
So Erica, so listening to all that, what I'm hearing is that is a lot. We as moms, we carry a lot, and it could be mentally exhausting,
Mhm.
physically exhausting. And I know you said something or you mentioned something about you miss like being able to come home and just take a bath and take time for yourself. Do you ever think about, or do you say, okay, look, today I'm just going to try to take time for myself? Like, because it's a lot. Like, and some stuff comes unexpectedly.
I mean, again, I wish I did. I mean, I do think about that sometimes, Ashley, but unfortunately, due to my circumstances and, um, my household, I just don't have that luxury because again, his dad works overnight, so it's just me, the baby, and my oldest child. And even with my oldest, uh, even he does help his mom. I will say that anything that my oldest that I ask him to do, he does do it for me. But just in the back of your mind, you just want to make sure that he's doing everything. Like I said, when I'm in the tub, I may say, "Hey, man, come down here and watch him while I get in the shower." But again, it's still that rush shower. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna take my precious time. But
Wait, it's the full corner
yeah,
shower. Hit
yeah,
those
yeah.
four
Four
corners and
corners, and then it's like out. Like, okay, you got to be back on mommy. But it's life, it's reality, and with this week, I was dealing with my youngest being sick. He's congested, and then my oldest, he had a toothache. So yeah, just that's a prime example of carrying the mental load because I
yeah.
don't have anybody that I can say, oh, well, my oldest dad, his dad is in prison, so with him having a toothache and then the baby being congested, I'm just like, okay, how I'm gonna work this out. Marcus, I have to think about, Marcus too, because again, when he gets off work, so usually my baby goes to a sitter. Um, but he didn't go this week, so I had my brother to come. So I'm working and dealing with the baby too. So This week I had my brother to come and help, watch him in the morning, at least till his dad got here. Between that time, I'm working, trying to attend to the baby, working, trying to attend to the baby. And then again, when his dad gets here, it's still mommy, because I know my fiance, he is really tired, and I have to take that into consideration. I know we both are tired, but he, for the most part, really don't get a lot of rest. Like he literally may lay down 2 to 3 hours per day, which isn't good, and you're driving over the road. So it's just, I have a lot as far as like carrying a lot. I'm thinking about him, the baby, my oldest, myself. It's just, I don't know. You just have to just buckle down and do what you got to do as a mom.
So
So that's
I
the
do.
thing, right? It seems like us as a mom is a lot of responsibility.
Yes,
Not only do we think about our children, we have to think about our spouses, our partners. And it's like, well, in return, we need somebody to think about us too,
absolutely.
because all of this, it like weighs heavy on us, and eventually, you're gonna break down.
Hmm.
Like I've had my breakdown.
Me
And
too.
okay, so y'all know I'm 7.5 months pregnant, and probably 2 months ago I had a breakdown. And it's not, I think it was just like I was so overwhelmed. We hadn't gotten to this point. We were trying to get to the point where I was having breaks, but I felt like my boyfriend wasn't really listening to me. Like during that week, I was just like, babe, I am really kind of stressed out. Things are really bothering me that doesn't usually bother me. And on this particular day, y'all, it was just small things. Tristan being Tristan, Tristan got in the pantry. Tristan got salt out of the pantry and put it all over the floor. So I had to sweep up. He did this 3 times in that one day. And my boyfriend is like, well, if you just close the pantry door. No shit. I know if I just close the pantry door. But sometimes I'm occupied doing other things. Well, I'm trying to cook us dinner and I just had it open for a minute. And kids are so quick. They just go and do things and you don't know.
Hmm.
Like until you like, oh, they're too quiet. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
he done got into some shit.
Yeah.
Like my breakdown was me calling him, venting and going way left, because I'm like, no, you're out, you having fun with your friends. I'm at home. I'm a total wreck. I need you to come home right now.
Right. Right.
And I'm just like, I need some help.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his fault in a way, but I really just needed some relief.
I think as moms, with our spouses, I think that we feel they should recognize when we're tired. They should,
Exactly.
and it's frustrating because, we take on so much. And I know me as a mom, just doing day to day working, when I get off work, my routine, definitely is working, getting off work, taking care of him. And that consists of, making sure that he eats, giving him a bath. And then even though I'm taking care of him, I also take care of my spouse as well, making sure that he gets his lunch. So in between getting him a bath, I'm fixing the lunch. Sometimes I don't even have time to wash myself, get myself together because I'm so focused on doing everything for them. But we feel as though those are things that, like, we recognize certain things that bothers, and when they're stressed and we put them first, it should be the same way. And I just think that men just don't think. I'm just gonna say that. I don't think that it's not that they're being inconsiderate. I just think that they feel like, okay, if you just ask, and us as women, we have our pride. We like, okay, we can be super moms, we can be super women, we can do this, we can do that. But sometimes we just have to take a step back and realize, we just can't do everything, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask our, to let our spouses know. And I know that, Tierney, I can definitely agree with you when you say, you feel as though like that when you're doing too much.
I think we as women, it's some things are just natural for us to do. We're naturally like
Those
a
instincts.
It's your instincts to nurture and care and look after. Just listening to both of y'all, I think is very interesting because my situation is completely different. So I hear y'all talking about, hey, I say, well, I want my boyfriend to help or my spouse to help or I do this or do that. Now, once upon a time, was I married? Yes. But in the living present right now, a lot of things for me are mentally exhausting as far as work, taking care of my kid, working, like I said, 2 jobs. It is a lot. And Tina, you mentioned earlier that you had a breakdown about 2 months ago. I have suffered in silence a lot because it's hard. It's not that I don't want to put my pride to the side, but it's so hard for me to ask for help when you're used to doing everything, right? When you're used to doing everything, asking for help, that may be a hard concept to grasp, at least for me. And so it is with work stressing me out, with a 9-year old stressing me out, with me not having a spouse or significant other at this moment to help me out. Heck, my ex-husband live in the same city now, right? And certain things that I expect, it still don't happen. So Erica, you mentioned, or one of y'all mentioned, men just don't think like we think. I would absolutely 100%
Mm-hmm.
agree. Like it's almost like we have to tell them, hey, here's the
Yeah.
schedule, here's the structure. Hey, can you help me out a little bit? Hey, I need a break, But I think it's important that we, eventually build our support system, even if you have a spouse, even if you have a boyfriend, even if you don't, because we need a break sometimes. And I mentioned earlier when you asked the question, Tierney, how do we deal with like the mental load or the challenges of being a mom? Honestly, y'all, I have 3 therapists because I have to release somehow. If I don't, it comes out wrong and my child sees that. And I don't want to come off as being like this evil parent or this mean parent to my child because I'm mentally and physically, emotionally, all these things, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
exhausted. So, I mean, I think it's a day to day thing. It's day by day for me, and every single day my child challenges me, and I just gotta think, how can I control my response? How can I control how to control, when I'm not mentally there,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a lot to try, and then y'all got to be inclusive of
Yeah.
other people, you know it's so many people out there that like we're bum, even though we all have different situations, right? We're bum as moms. But I just was listening to y'all and I'm like, man, in this moment in my life, my situation is completely different. Because I'm telling you, my son tests my gangster every day. Every day.
Okay, so Ashley, I have a
Ooh,
question.
yeah.
How did you get to the point where you felt like you needed therapy to help you with your stress or your situation? What brought you to that? And then also, so I heard that you say your child's father lives in the same city. How are you all now co-parenting? Or, well, let's leave that for another episode because we do have an episode about
Baby, that's a whole nother
co-parenting.
a co-parenting episode. That's a whole nother topic, whole nother episode that we gonna get some juicy details from me about.
Yes,
So
but
yeah, let
how have you like changed the conversation to be like, hey, I need a break. What's our schedule? What are we going to do? Like, how have you gone forward with it?
Okay, so let me just answer the first question where you asked me, how did I figure out that I needed therapy? Well, you have to know what stress, like coping mechanisms, right? So when I'm really stressed out, I need to talk about it 50 million times. And so I realized that, hey, I have friends that support me, but your friends are going to be biased. I don't care what nobody says. Again, I don't want to have to talk about what I'm stressed out about 50 million times to my friends because I don't want them to be like, oh, here come Ashley
Mm-hmm.
again. So what I did was I'm like, I need someone who don't know me from Adam's tail to listen to me, to give me advice, to challenge me, to help me grow and become better and kind of be on top of or kind of handle like when I'm mentally not there or like when I want to say something off the wall to my child, right? I have to like take 2 seconds, will it in, and respond differently because whether we like it or not, our children are watching us, and they pick up
Yeah.
on things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm stressed out, I figured, hey, let me have somebody who has an unbiased opinion to kind of help me. And then I have had, and we'll talk about this in another episode, I've had postpartum depression before. So I kind of know, hey, what it feels like to be like not
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Right. So that's how I kind of figured it out. And I was like, well, if I can get something from this therapist, I can get something from this therapist. Hey, everybody can hear me, because at the end of the day, the therapist is there to help you become better and help you to manage your emotions, or help you to like, control how you respond. So that's kind of how I figured.
Mm-hmm.
Going into like my ex-husband being in the same city, how is it? I mean, honestly, we learn it every day. Every day is still a challenge. He's been here since April of 2022. And it's still a challenge because our parenting styles are very different, very different. And does he stress me out? Hell yeah, he stresses me out. But I have to remember, hey, I can't teach him how to parent, or I can't necessarily be mad at his parenting
Mm-hmm.
style. But what I can say is that our child needs structure,
Right.
right? And so we've been working on that, and that's a challenge within itself. And again, there have been times where we've had our back and forth words, trust and believe, even here. But I mean, I think it's a day-to-day thing. I still don't agree on some things, and he doesn't agree with some things either. But um, I don't think he grasps the concept that sometimes I'm mentally exhausted. And so I'm still trying to like still give him the benefit of the doubt, like, and still try to, it's his child. I'm not gonna, I would never take his child away, even if, he pissed me off to there is no end, because I know what it's like to have not have a dad, right? And I don't want to do that. So it's a lot of challenges. It's a lot of things that flow through my mind. I down spiral. It's just a lot of things. But I think for us, it's a day to day. We don't necessarily converse every day, you know, but we definitely try to like match schedules and figure out a plan. And it's been times where I'll say, hey, Andrew's not coming over here this week. He needs a break. You need a break. We all need a break. And yeah. So, but I don't think he's stepped up to the plate to say, I know you're tired. I know you do a lot. I'll handle this. No, that ain't happened yet. Maybe one day he'll get it. Who knows? And I don't know.
So Ashley, overall, do you feel like him being in the same city has helped more than harmed, or do you feel like you were doing a better job by yourself?
Girl.
Is
Okay.
that too
So
much? Is that too much?
the truth is the truth, because you can be present but absent, if that makes any sense.
It makes a
And
lot of sense. I understand that statement.
so has it helped? Yeah, it's helped me not have to rush out of work at 5 o'clock to get my child by 6. Yeah, that's been helpful. It's been helpful that he can be present at his school when they have like Father's Day things. Again, he was here since April. Father's Day passed in June. Andrew was able to be there. I think that in certain ways, yes, it has been helpful. In others, I still feel like I'm doing it by myself, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
honest truth. I mean, it is what it is. I again think that eventually he will say okay, or step up and be like, "Yep, I got this." But again, I think I don't want any parents to ever feel like, hey, I'm babysitting my child. No, you're not babysitting your child. That's your responsibility. And children needs
Exactly.
structure. Children need structure. I'm
Yep.
gonna keep saying it and keep
Mm-hmm.
saying it. They need structure. For me, like my child lived in two separate houses, really. He has my house and he has Andrew's house. And what I mean by children need structure, meaning if he's on punishment at my house, he should be on punishment at your house, because then it confuses the child,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like, well, I'm at mommy house and I'm on punishment. Now I'm at daddy house and I can do whatever I want. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that little Andrew, does whatever he wants at his dad's house. I am just saying there needs to be structure. And that can be a challenge within itself, having a child that has two different households because the parents aren't together. We're trying to co parent, trying to make sure the structure stays not necessarily exactly the same, but close enough, because it's confusing to the child. I mean, it's just a work in progress with our relationship, and us being the best parents that we can be for our child. But every day is a challenge. I'm not gonna lie to you, and it can be draining. And sometimes I don't even consider if Andrew's mentally exhausted with working. I fail to ask sometimes. And I don't know. Maybe I should take time to ask that too. But again, some things I feel like I just expect. But who knows? When you expect things from people, it brings
Hmm.
disappointment. So yeah,
Well, that's the thing. Like, we're talking about our mental load, but like, do we take the time out to think about them? I do, and I think that's why in the beginning I was like, "Hey, I can handle this." Until I did break down, because then I felt like I was at a point where it's like, "Hey, I've explained this to you. Other people have explained this to you, and I don't really think that you get it." But like, I'm trying to show you with actions that I'm at this breaking point and I don't know what's going to
Hmm.
happen. Just please give me a little
Right.
relief. And things did
yeah,
change, and thank God that they did. And I would say 100%, like, my boyfriend has really stepped up. Like, I am so proud of him. When
that's
I
good.
say that things are a lot easier for me, I just left to go to San Francisco for a few days. I was going to go work, and one, I had no worries. We went over the schedule, what he eats. Don't let him watch TV all day. We have him in Jamboree class. Take him there, get him out, do stuff. Like, we're on the same page with those things, and so I could just go and do what I had to do and come back without any worries. And when you have a partner that shows up for you like that, it makes life so much
Hmm.
easier.
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree. And like you mentioned just a few minutes ago and even earlier that you had a breakdown, right? And I think we've all experienced a breakdown. And I don't want people out there to think that when bum ass moms or when women have breakdowns that we're considered weak. We're
Hmm.
human, right?
No.
And it can be a lot. And you know, again, we'll talk about this in another episode as far as the postpartum depression go, but sometimes when it's said or certain actions from other people make it out that like you're weak when you break down, it makes you become less vulnerable and want to share. And it's a lot. And again, we're human. None of you all that have ever broke down because you carried the mental load are weak. We're strong. We bounce back. We break down, but we figure out how to move
Hmm.
forward. So keep that in mind. I don't want you all or the listeners out there to think that we're sharing our stories that you're weak by any means. If you tell us that you've never had to carry the mental load or you never were mentally exhausted, please share some tips on what you do because we
Yes,
want to
I,
know.
I surely do.
Well, I'll say this also. Breaking down is only you're at a point where you need a break. You could just be crying. You could just go in the bathroom and scream because you just need that
Hmm.
break. It does not mean that you're weak, because sometimes you have to fall in order to rebuild and be a stronger person,
Absolutely.
and that
I agree.
happens. That's
I
a part of life. That's a part of
yeah,
bettering yourself. So
yes,
if someone said, I've never had that, happen, how? Please share some details with us. Share something that you've done that has helped you. Because everybody has different coping mechanisms. The way I
yeah,
cope is not how Ashley copes or how Erica copes or any other bomb ass moms cope. We are all different. And I may need to go in the bathroom and scream and cry.
Hmm.
Or I may need to be like, hey, I'm gonna put this baby in a playpen and just walk away for a few
Yeah,
minutes.
it
It
does.
happens. We are
y'all.
Yep, you're
human.
absolutely right. Everybody
Let
has
me
a breaking point.
let me tell you, I had a breaking point in 2022 where I literally, y'all, I was crying, boo-hooing, was ready to give away my child. I'm not gonna lie. This is me now, having a little vulnerability with, those that are listening. Was ready to give up. I called my ex-husband, was like, I can't do this. Y'all, I called the hotline to say I don't want to hurt my child. I need help. A question got asked to me. I ain't gonna say from who, but why would you do that? What do you mean? Why would I do that? I am having a breakdown. I am at a point, a breaking point where I cannot do this at this moment and I don't want to hurt my child. So, that made me feel some type of way when I got asked, why would you do that? Right? There are resources out there to where if you are having a hard time, use your resources. Let me just say, shout out to Ope. She is one of my, sisters here who helped me. She took my son for days. 5 days. So I didn't have to give him to a perfect stranger. But y'all, I had a breakdown, and the person that I expected to like show up and be there for me as far as being supportive, even if you couldn't physically be there, asked me why would I call somebody when I was having a breakdown. So don't ever let nobody guilt trip you for reaching out and trying to find the help or seek the help, because it's out there, and use it if you need
And
to.
don't suffer in silence. I think that's part of the problem as moms. We tend to definitely, some of us, we will suffer in silence. We'll wait till we were just at our breaking point where we just can't take anymore. And I feel like before we get to that point, talk it out. You have family, you
Mhm.
have friends. Again, just like Ashley said, we have resources out here. Use your resources and definitely get the help. Talk it out, because sometimes the smallest things, talking it out is just better than holding it in.
And also, it's better than exploding and doing something that you will
Exactly.
regret. We always
Exactly.
see, yeah, we always see on the news moms hurting themselves, hurting their children. So kudos to you, Ashley, because that was the responsible thing to do.
Exactly.
That was the most caring thing
Hmm.
to do.
It was hard. It was very hard, but I knew I was there, and I said, I need help. And I reached.
So, what made you recognize that you needed help? Because sometimes I think that we don't recognize that thing that's telling us, "Hey, you're getting to your point." Because I didn't recognize it. I knew that I was overwhelmed. The only thing that I did recognize was like, oh, these small things that wouldn't even matter. They were like really getting to me, and that was the
Well,
only thing that I recognized. But other than that, like I couldn't tell that. Oh, I was about to fall off this bridge.
well,
That's a
I
metaphor. That's a metaphor, people. I
no, no,
wasn't about
no.
to jump, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
I think that it was just one thing after another. Like, I think I had had a stressful week at work. People were falling out of my life left and right. My child giving me the blues, and it was just to the point where like I picked him up and he would not listen, and he was being angry. It was just a lot of things, and I was just like, you know what, God? I said, I am there. If this child get in this car, it is not going to be a good look. And so I was like crying, and the after school care teacher came and she talked to Andrew and was like, hey, you need to listen to your mommy. God says you should obey your parents. And Andrew was still not having it. And I said, I know I can't go home with this child today. I have to call somebody, because I know that my anger was getting the best of me, and I didn't want to do something like you said that I regret. So, with that being said, I called for help. They were very helpful. And then I reached Opay, and Opay was like, bring him over here. And he got in the car. We didn't say two words to each other. I brought him to Opay house, and it was like a relief. And she was just like, listen, you need a break. I know what it's like. But I recognized it because my anger was getting to the point where like I felt like I was like, ooh, I could just do anything. And I didn't want to do that. I don't want to hurt my child. No, I don't want to hurt my child. But
Mhm.
my emotions and everything were getting the best of me. And I think it was because it was everything piling on top of everything. And this was before I had three therapists, guys. So I didn't have three therapists at that time, right? But now, Andrew still, like I said, test my gangster. But I am finding ways to, not feed into it, or not just I don't ignore my child, but I mean, it's a challenge every day, but I find better ways to respond because I can control how I respond. I can't control how anybody else do anything, and I'm learning it day to day.
We've been talking for a while. We're going to take a little break and then we'll come back.
All right.
All right.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. So while we were
Yes.
on our break, I was thinking of this question because sometimes I have a hard time with like my decision making. Tristan is my first child, so yeah, I know I can't be a perfect mom. No one is perfect, but making certain decisions cause me a lot of stress. And I wanted to know, like, does like decision making, like everyday choices, cause you stress? Even decisions about discipline, which is like a big thing for myself and my spouse. their nutrition, the things that they do. Like I noticed, and this is about discipline. We take our child to like this jamboree sing and play class. We notice that like he's picking up these negative behaviors from other children. Like when we first took him there, he was able to share. He'll take a toy from somebody, but he'll give it right back. But this time we noticed he took it and he didn't want to give it back. And then when we made him give the toy back, he started crying. And it's like, oh my God, what do we do in this instance? And it's like, okay, well, we're the type of parents that notice, like, okay, right now, we're not going to hit him. We're not going to, like, tap him on the hand because we don't think at this moment it registers like he understands that type of discipline. So it made us feel like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because we don't like this reaction. So how do you all deal with those type of stressors?
Okay, that's another challenge within itself too.
You know, when you have small children, any child I feel that's under two, a lot of times like the discipline that they're still in the learning stage. I think a child doesn't really grasp what discipline is until like two and up. That's what I would say.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
it might be greater than two though. Yes, kids understand, but like I don't know, 2-year-olds be setting their little ways. I mean, I
Yeah,
can
they do.
understand no and yes, but like true like discipline and you know, if something bad happens or not bad happens, if they do something bad, there's a consequence. I don't know. I don't know if Andrew grasped that at two. He was smart, but I don't know you now.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Like when I'm not saying that they gonna fully, but you know they know what that stop and no
That
means. You know, right?
okay.
You know, subject to when they're one, they're looking at you like, yeah, okay, you talking to me? Okay,
I'm gonna continue to do
okay.
what I'm doing, mommy.
I'm gonna continue to do what I'm doing, mama, daddy. Like, okay, you know, they think everything is funny. Like, even my baby now, shoot, he just 9 months, and you know, funny, you know, now. And I be like, no, he look at me and just be so tickled, like, no, it's so funny to him. Like he busts out laughing, like, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he
But yeah,
definitely
I just
doesn't
think that,
know what no means because he's like, whatever. Yeah, what's that
like, what you
word?
talking about?
Right.
Like, all thing
Exactly.
you know is like, I'm
Now
saying no,
the
like,
kids, they might have selective hearing. I don't know.
Well, that's what they say.
not selective here, Ashley.
Yes, because listen, they know. Again, I think a 2-year-old though two can test your gangster too. I don't know.
You know they say the kids when they get in their twos, they be
The
terrible. But
terrible
you know what?
twos.
I
I
think one
don't
day
know. Andrew wasn't terrible. He was terrific at 2, terrible at 3, fucked up at 4 and 5.
Oh, say it again.
I'm just saying.
nah, Ashley. He was wonderful in two. Nah, girl. Okay, he trickled that. I don't know. I can't even go back in the shoot. I ain't 15. I can't even go back to two. I think I had one episode. I think the most embarrassing moment that I've ever had with Maine, he had to be almost two. I think me and my mom, we was in Walmart. And she went to get one of those little Power Wheel cars or whatever for him, you know, for Christmas. He wanted some chips. And I think he had already been eating a bunch of snacks. And I was just like, no, we're not gonna get this. Y'all, he hollered and screamed and fell out in the floor. I was just like so embarrassed.
Okay,
And, you
let me
know,
just ask this real quick before you finish your
uh,
story.
uh,
Why did that embarrass you? Because looking at children, knowing that he's two or under, like we know that they don't know how to deal with their emotions. So why did that embarrass you?
Yeah, I want to know too because Tierney's right. Now at 9, the shit would embarrass me, but at 2, I don't know, and I don't. Yeah,
well,
I'm here for yours, Erica.
I mean, I guess it was because the way that he laid out on the floor. I mean, like he laid out like one of those baby kids. Like I said, baby kids. I should say that. But yeah, he laid out in that floor and was just kicking and kicking and kicking and like screaming really loud. And me being, I was a young parent, so me being young and you have all eyes on you, you don't know what to do. And a lot of people didn't look at me like, okay, they probably knew that I was young, but not actually knowing the age that I was. Again, at the time, I was probably 16, probably not even 17 years old. So again, I was a child with a child. So what I would say as far as the most embarrassing for me is, like I said, I've never been a mom before, didn't know what to expect, and all I see is a baby just screaming and hollering and kicking. But my child just screaming, hollering, and kicking. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So the reason why I asked that question, because I'm always looking to better myself as a mom, and I think that like in instances like that, it's embarrassing because we feel shamed because other people are looking at us. But you have to think about like what stage your child is in. If they don't know how to behave in a way that like, oh, I can control my emotions. You know what I'm saying? If they don't understand controlling your emotions, why does it shame you? Because that should be a normal behavior for a child that's young. And
Who
so,
cares at two? Like, who cares? Like, I don't care if people stare at me. They don't have to go home with me. Who cares? But again, it is like you said, it's different developmental stages and different stages in a
right.
child's life, right? At 9 years old, if
Mhm.
Andrew kicking and screaming on the floor, boy, he gonna get jacked up. Like that's different,
Mhm.
But
Right.
honestly, who cares? Then it's my child, right? But he should know better, at this age, right? I can't be like, oh, 2 year old, you should know better. That's
Well,
just my
no,
thought.
but
Yeah,
people,
but again,
yeah, people will
mhm,
shame you though. Like, ooh, look at that
mhm,
child right there. Like, and it makes you feel bad, but then you have to understand, like, you got to change your own mind and your own thought processes to be like, oh, this is totally normal. This is fine. What can I do to support my child versus, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Let's get the hell up out of this store. You know what I'm saying?
I get up out of the store. But no, listen, it goes back to the question you originally asked, like the challenges we face or we deal with as parents or whatever. If going out in public is challenging, then hey, maybe some people choose not to go out in public. I don't know. Like, but for me, I when Andrew was two, honestly now, I don't care, but I do give him a little bit more sternness now. Not at two or whatever. But you're right, people but there are so many judgmental people in the world. So who cares, right? They don't go home with us. I don't care.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, but me being the age that that I am now, as far as my youngest know, going out in public and him screaming and hollering because I'm older. I've experienced motherhood, so I know what it looks like. So of course, it hits different. I know that in my mind, okay, you're a baby and you're doing baby things. So
Do you think, even though we're gonna talk about this on another podcast, like being young, a young mom, do you think now that you understand more of like developmental age because you've gone through this before, but like at this age, do you think basically you have more patience so you understand more like, okay, this is like typical baby behavior?
exactly,
Okay.
yes, yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
That's good to
Um,
know.
mhm.
Tyranny, maybe you have more patience. And maybe if I'd have another baby, I have more patience. Who knows, Erica? Who Lord, yeah.
You know what, being a mom, I think it's that first mom syndrome again. You're still learning, you're trying to learn yourself, you're also trying to learn your baby, you're trying to learn how to be a mom, how to care for your baby. It's just a lot of things that come into play with being a first time
Hmm.
mom. Now, you know, becoming a mom the second time around is like easy breezy because again what to expect. Again, every child is different, but it's still what to expect as being a mom. That's just what I'm gonna say. So that's why I say now, my first child, because I was so young, I had the support of my mom, and she pretty much stepped in like she was mama grandmama, you know what I'm saying? Because I was a child raising a child, so I had to have help in certain ways with learning things with a child. Even though the motherly instincts kicked in when I had them, it's still I needed guidance, being that young.
And that was good that you had support from your mom, because nowadays sometimes, some moms will say, "Oh, I'm not ready to be a grandma," and they disown their child for having a baby young. I don't like that feeling, but we'll talk about that later too. I think that's awesome that your mom was there to help you through it too.
Absolutely. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my mom.
So, for either one of you all, what causes you the most stress when being a mom? Because I think for me, it's like I didn't have, well, just a small little short backstory. Like, I was raised by my grandma. So, I didn't have my biological mom to be like, hey, this is what you expect, or I didn't have like that person, that representative to be like, I'm your mom, I'm showing you the steps, other than my grandma. So that's who I look to as a mom, and that's what I kind of correlate my motherly style. But also, when having a child, I don't have anybody that call me and be like, "Hey, how is everything going? How is this particular part of motherhood going? Like, how is parenting?" We don't have that. And I know, Ashley, you said there's no pamphlet, there's no book for parenting. There probably
Hmm.
are books, but like, it's not like a given. So
Hmm.
No, yeah,
when
there are resources, but I'm saying like you have to figure out what works for you. Like that book is like black and white. This is what you should expect. Like if it's like a perfect world,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily a perfect world. So what I mean is, no, there is no book of how Tierney is going to raise her child, how Ashley is going to raise her child, because you have to figure it out what works best for you. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and I
Hmm.
think that from not really how I was raised, because didn't really get a lot of discipline. I wasn't like one of those children that got in trouble a lot. So when it comes to discipline, I'm like, oh, what is right and what is wrong? Or what works for me? How do I feel about that? It's just like, it's not as easy. No one said parenting is easy. I don't know. If it's easy to you, give me some tips, because it's not. I'm constantly struggling with like what is right. And then you feel like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake. But we all do make mistakes, but it's just hard when you like, oh, this is my child, and I want to make sure I'm raising them in the best way possible.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna say this, Tyranny. You are gonna have trial and errors as being a mom. I've definitely had some along the way, as far as like when it comes down to discipline. My oldest, like he's been in trouble a couple of times, and then when he did get in trouble, I've disciplined him. But I've always went back as a mom and was like, dog, did I do the right thing? But one thing about me, I've learned, as what I want my children to understand. If you get in trouble, then I'm finna explain. We finna sit down. Also, after I discipline you, we're gonna definitely have the conversation so that you can understand why I did what I did, or why this led to this consequence. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say sometimes, you're gonna have times where you question and you think like, are you doing the right thing? As a mama, like Asha said, we don't have a pamphlet. We don't have. It's just you go with what you know, and you go with what's best for you
Yeah, I
and your
agree.
household.
I definitely agree. And as long as keeping your baby alive,
Mm-hmm.
healthy, I think you are doing right by your baby and soon to be babies.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Andrew and I, when we go back to the discipline part, we do not discipline Andrew the same, right? But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I don't feel like parents should always revert to spanking as the first choice. I think, earlier on, Tierney, you had said something about tapping Tristan's hand. But at the end of the day, like I don't think that for me, like spanking a child throughout their life is always the answer. At least in my household, like you do have to figure out what's right, or like what's best for you. But I think that, like Erica said, certain things are trial and error. And I'm gonna be real honest with y'all. Before, like, we had started tapping Andrew on the hand or on the bottom, I had asked Big Andrew. I said, "Did you get spankings when you were coming up? Because if you didn't get spankings, you ain't spanking my child, right?" I even had to go back to his parents and be like, "Did y'all tap that ass when Andrew was growing up?" Because I just don't agree that, like, if you didn't get spanked as a child, like, that you revert to like spanking your kid. That's just not. I just didn't agree. I mean, my mom used to tear us up, baby, tear us up. But as day to day go on, I realized that child is going to become immune to it or afraid of you or whatever if you always revert to spanking. So, like, I've talked to my therapist about that. This, as far as discipline goes, I try not to spank Andrew. I try not to even yell at Andrew. But again, like I mentioned before, Andrew sometimes tests my gangster. But the things that my child love, like, I made him look up the definition of punishment now that he understand what it means, or old enough to understand what it means. So we gonna be on punishment. We taking away video games. That's kind of how I structure discipline and kind of get his dad on board to kind of discipline him now.
Okay, Ash, I have a question for you
Yeah,
because let me go back to what you said. When you said you felt like if Big Andrew didn't get whoopings, he shouldn't be able to
that's how I
discipline.
felt. That's how I thought. I'm not gonna lie to
So
y'all.
what made you feel that way, even though you came up in the households where getting a whooping or a spanking was common?
Well, okay. So as you all know, Andrew is biracial,
Hmm.
and I just did not. Just by meeting Andrew's parents and everything like that, I didn't think in my mind that Andrew grew up getting disciplined with spankings just by how they carry themselves and things like that. So I had to ask that question. Andrew had parents that he was raised by. I was raised in a single parent home. It was just a lot of things. So yeah, I asked that question because we obviously were raised completely different.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's why.
So did he get
Okay.
spankings growing up or no?
He did, but it wasn't as much as me. My mama didn't play. But he did. He did. I'm telling you. But he did. His parents did confirm. I mean, he did too, but it wasn't like a lot, you
Okay.
know.
So, because I was just
Mhm.
thinking, like, was it something for you to ask that question? Is it something that he learned, or is it something that he just thinks that that's the right thing to do when your child does not behave? So, I didn't, yeah.
I don't know, cause I talked to Andrew now today, and he feels as though he don't listen, then you spank him. No, that's not necessarily the right answer. So I don't know if it's something that is because he went through and he thinks that that's okay, and that's the answer. That's the like be all know all or whatever. But I don't know. I just tell him now that Andrew is 9 and he understands, and spanking him isn't always the answer. It's not.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I can definitely agree with you there. Sometimes, uh, just having that talk with your child it's worse than a spanking to me. I can tell ya, like I've rarely had to spank my oldest child. Now the second one, I don't really know how he gonna be,
Don't do my baby
but
like that.
I tell him all the time. Let me tell you something. You tried me too, Dad. You know you're a little baby, but you gonna learn your mama real early. Like I be tickled at my sister because my sister she has 4 children and they're all different ages and like her youngest is like 2 years old and she used to tell her like before like when she was like 1, girl, you reach meet your mama real early and it just tickled me, but she don't as far as like spanking, she wouldn't, spank like her youngest. I think to like now it's still not like a spanking. It's more like a tap than a spanking. Sometimes you can just clap your hands and be fussing and the baby will be crying. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one thing for me for like to start a new generation. I definitely just think about it. I don't really want to spank my children. And like I said, I started tapping Tristan and like those little taps. they really didn't phase him at all. He didn't really understand like what I was doing. It didn't hurt him. He didn't cry. Like he didn't stop doing what he was doing. But I did notice the behavior. He started hitting me. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to hit him because I don't want to teach him that's what you're supposed to do when you're not getting your way, or if someone is not behaving how you want them to. Let's try something different. And so what I have been trying is like distraction, redirection, or like now he's starting to, like, if he doesn't get his way, he'll cry or he'll like kind of holler a little bit. Like I make sure that I do not meet him on his level. I
That's good.
Yeah, if he's on a level 7, hey, I'm down here on a level 2. I'll try to, and people may think this is wrong, but I'll try to give him love, show him love, like, hey, give me a hug, give me a kiss. And I know people like boys and girls are different, but no, my children, all of them are gonna be the same. They're gonna be treated the same. Like he's not gonna be a soft boy just because I love on him. I think sometimes you got to give them something different than what they're putting out. And
I No, I was gonna say I totally agree. You said a couple things. You said a couple things that I'm like, okay, yeah. You said how you're starting early to, show love and affection, do positive reinforcement. That is good to start early because trying to catch up to it is hard. It's very hard. So that's good that you're starting early with Tristan and telling him, or he's still talking to him, telling him, hey, tapping, like you're tapping him, and you said he'll hit you back, and you want to reaffirm that you don't want him to think, hey, this is okay. I think that's awesome that you're starting so early.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's
And
important. Like, I'm trying to do the shit that, and excuse my language, I'm trying to do the shit that others before me didn't even do. Not, I wouldn't even say my grandma, but like how my, I guess, aunts and uncles, like how they describe my grandma when they were being raised, like, oh no, she didn't play. We got our ass whooped. And I was like, oh, I never really got a whooping. I don't know what you mean. Like, y'all was just bad as hell. Maybe I wasn't that type of child, you know?
yeah, you got to realize every child is different. I am going to say that's a wonderful thing that you are trying early, but I am going to tell you in the real world, in reality, like children, they study their parents. So
Amen. Amen.
you can try everything in the book, like, but as they get older, you still are going to have to redirect discipline where they understand and they know that when you say something, you mean it. It
That's
ain't,
true.
you know what I'm saying? It ain't like, it ain't play. It ain't for play.
Mm-hmm.
Like for right now, it's a good thing because they're young. But as they get older, and you're gonna learn that as time go on, as you grow with your children, they gonna have to know like, okay, my mama ain't playing with me. And like I said, resulting to spanking and all that type of stuff, it's not always necessary, but sometimes what I'm saying, in certain situations, they have to know, okay, my mama will pop me if I
Really?
don't sit my
So
tail down.
in your opinion, you feel like at a certain point you do have to result to being physical with your child.
Exactly. I
I
don't
mean,
think
I've done that, but I'm not saying that I look forward to that. It's easy to say what you won't do until you're in a situation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
yes,
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you,
like
Ashley.
it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm never gonna, spank my child, or I'm never gonna put my
Hmm.
child on punishment," until you're faced with some of the challenges that children will test you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
and you will have to make a decision, then and there, to figure out how you're going to discipline your child to help your child understand, hey, this wasn't right, or X, Y, and Z, but yeah. I told
Yeah,
myself
because
I wasn't gonna yell at my child, but that
I
happened
mean, yeah.
before.
If I said you can, you plan to do certain things. Don't get me wrong. You plan to do certain things, but again, when your back is up, when your back is against the wall, and you're in a situation, and sometimes you have to put your foot down and be that stern parent. I know someone that doesn't like spanking. their children. Don't like to hit, don't like to do nothing, but I mean, the discipline,
Yeah,
you
but
know, it.
for certain households, and I'm sorry again, Eric, for interrupting. For certain households, I have a friend that don't spank her children, whatever. But whatever works, like she could just give them that look, and maybe that look put the fear in them.
Oh, well, yeah,
Works for
yeah.
their household. You will figure it out what works for you. It's just in our
Mm-hmm.
experiences, this is what we reverted to. Yeah, there are some things that I said I would never do, but I've done
Yep.
it, and then I've realized, oh crap, let's try to revert to something else. My son knows that I don't reward bad behavior, right? Now we have the conversation of, if you do something bad or if you do something that's not right, no, we don't get to go to the trampoline park. No, you don't get to go X, Y, and Z. No, you don't get to go to swim. It's a privilege, right? You need to understand
Mm-hmm.
what behavior you did to cause this consequence of not allowing you to do something fun. I don't reward bad behavior. I just don't.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is made me think because both of you all have older children. And like I'm like
Mm-hmm.
starting brand new. And then well, I'm starting over too. But it's just like, oh my God, this right here, it causes me a lot of like mental stress because it's like you want to do it right. But sometimes you're not gonna get it right. Like you said, Erica, on their first try, it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be trial and error. I just like want my children to like understand we are growing together, and if I don't do something right the first time, then you have to understand that I'm learning myself because I didn't have the best example. Like my grandma, she was the best example, but at the end of the day, she was my grandma. She raised me as
Mm-hmm.
her grandchild. She didn't treat me any different, but this was a different stage of her life. She was in the stage of being a grandmother and not a mother. Even though she raised us as her children, it was just a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I agree with you. You know how you mentioned that, your grandmother raised you and you didn't necessarily learn like the parenting thing from your biological mother. I think that you learned what you could from your grandmother raising you. Like you mentioned too, you hadn't got any spankings and you don't necessarily think that you would spank your child. But again, you're going to figure out what works for you. I think we don't forget where we come from, forget how we were raised, but we paved the way to figure out how we can be the best parent for our child.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Perfectly said, Ashley. That's
Yep.
perfectly
Perfect.
said.
Yep.
Yeah. And I always think about like parenting ever since I've like got pregnant. And it's like even when I found out we were having a boy, and at this time we didn't even think about an entire family. Like we're gonna have this other kid, and we're gonna try to do this, that. No, we didn't think about that. But when I found out I had a boy, I had a small amount of devastation. Just
Oh, I
because we're in America and it's so hard for African American boys and men. So I was just like, oh my God, like, how can I teach my child the right way, keep him safe? And it was hard for me. Like, when I found this out, I cried in the car. I really
Oh,
did.
those are
Mm-hmm.
valid thoughts and valid points. And again, we go back to
Mm-hmm.
that's good. Chris is there to help raise Tristan, and we go back to we
Mm-hmm.
do what we can do as parents, like we do the best that we can do as parents with raising our child or children to know what's right, what's wrong in the world. Because the one thing that I fear the most, and I agree with you, yes, my son is biracial, but the world is going to view him as a black boy.
Hmm.
And the thing I fear the most is that environmental control, that environmental thing that I can't control, and my son may be caught up in something, and you've done the best that you can do as a parent, and something devastating happen. Like that's still a fear in the back of. I can speak for all of us in the back of all of our mind because we all have boys.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yep.
do.
It's just it makes me cringe. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to do the best I can to raise my child. No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an ex husband that can teach Andrew how to be a black man. But that's why I try to have these men in my life as far as friends, black male friends, to kind of mentor and mold Andrew to see the lens from a black man. It's just
Yeah,
that
that's awesome.
ugh, that is a sensitive subject because again, we're doing the best that we can, and it's
Mm.
that environment that we can't control.
Okay, guys. Well, ladies, we've been talking a while, and we're gonna close out the show.
Hope y'all have been enjoying listening to the Bum Ass Moms podcast.
So next week we are going to talk about something a little different. We're going to talk about Ashley's birth story, and I can't wait to hear about it.
You know, I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm pretty sure some ladies out there can and will relate how my son came to this world. That's next week, guys. You gotta tune in to listen, but make sure you don't forget to subscribe. Listen to us on whatever platform: Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Don't forget to follow us on IG at BombAssMomsPodcast and Facebook, or you can email us at